All right, so today is March 26, 2020. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. So today on the agenda, we have a number of things. First up, we're going to talk to Mike Denise. He has a KEP that he's been wanting to discuss with SIG Storage. So we'll do that first, get it out of the way so we can get him on his way. Second, we're going to go over the Q1 2020 118 planning spreadsheet and identify the end of quarter, or do the end of quarter review and figure out what we were able to complete, what we shipped, what we didn't ship. And then in the next meeting in 2 weeks, we're going to do Q2 planning for the 119 release. And then if there's any PRs that need attention or design reviews, please stick them in the agenda and we'll get to them at the end. So jumping right into it, I'll stop sharing and hand it over to Mike Denise.
Cool. I don't have much to share, but I'll give you a highlight. Xiang is also on the call. He's been working on this. We have, I think in 1.11, we implemented as alpha a projected token volume source that we would like to replace service account token volumes that are exposed via secret volumes today. They have a number of improvements over the secret volumes. They rotate. One of the things that we wanted to fix during this transition was also file permissions. So secrets by default have world readable file permissions. This works for the most part this works for all types of deployments. However, it's not as secure as we would like them to be. So starting off, we had originally set the file permissions for projected tokens to be 600. This means that if you want to use them with a pod running as non-root, you have to use FS group today. It's hard to do the migration from secrets to projected service account tokens because we don't actually know what user a container is going to start as until we actually inspect the image, because they can be declared, that run as user can actually be declared in the Docker file. In order to move this along, the proposal kind of highlights a strategy for opportunistically choosing more restricted file permissions and then falling back to 644, which was the secrets default when we have no way of knowing whether the pod is going to be able to what user the pod is going to run as. There's been a little discussion on the KEP so far. I think we had questions about whether we wanted to solve this at the file level or use volume level ownership, like set volume owner for this. And also there was some discussion on whether we would want to use anything that we do here for other types of volumes, because I think file ownership has been discussed for stuff like host vault, or what is it, empty dir, and also like git sync volume source. But that's kind of the highlight. Has anybody had a chance to take a look at the KEP here?
Yeah, this is Hemant. I had a chance to review it, and Michelle CC'd me into the KEP, and I think it looks fine. The only thing that was standing out a little bit for me, and I need to take another look, is like uh, if uh, if a pod has it introduces a new mechanism. If pod has a run as user and field in the security context, pod security context, and so it will use that user to change the permissions for the volume. And it will only work for projected service account tokens. This mechanism that it introduces won't work for other volume types, which is kind of, I'm not so sure about, like uh, having a unique way of giving permission for just one volume type. But
Yeah,
yeah.
so we are motivated to solve this for tokens specifically. So that's why the KEP talks about tokens. It's actually not an entire KEP; it's a section of the projected service account token KEP. Um, Making broader changes requires a broader conversation. If the approach makes sense for, I think if we can if we can convince ourselves that this won't break config maps or secrets, it might be a viable way of fixing file permissions for all projected or all volume sources that use the projected or file projections underneath. Um, and there are volume sources like host dir and gitsync that are not using projections, and those were also linked, or issues to the regarding those were also linked in the KEP. We're happy to have a broader conversation, but the KEP right now is focused on this specific issue. If we were to have a conversation about implementing something similar to this for like maybe config maps and secrets, or
I was more thinking like if we are going to do this for this volume type, maybe not just for ephemeral volume types, probably at some point, do you want to support it for all volume types, like including persistent volume types?
all volume types, I don't know if that. I mean, I'm coming from SIG Auth. I don't know whether it makes sense to do it for all volume types because this would require writing potentially a large number of file permissions to disk. Um, do do we have plans, or have we talked about setting ownership on full volumes in this SIG before?
We actually already do that. And it's really expensive. And stuff got added just in the last release, I think, around being able to turn off that behavior because it's so expensive. So yeah, FS group permissions will get propagated recursively. It's it's really expensive.
Yeah, that sounds that is surprising to me. That's why I think it's going to be really easy to do this for any file projections, and doing that generally seems.
I think it makes sense for the projected config map secret downward API volume types. I think treating those consistently would make sense. It does increase the scope a little bit, but leaving those incoherent seems worse. That would also start to allow some of solving some of the problems people have had with secrets, where they wanted to mount a secret that had like an SSH key, and things inside the container complained that it had group visible permission. It wouldn't allow it to be consumed.
Mm-hmm.
we could then tell people set a run as user, and we'll scope the permissions to your user, basically.
Yeah. So
Do we?
I would,
I was about to say, do we ever want to like have similar thing for like CSI ephemeral volumes if somebody is trying to use a CSI volume as secret? I mean, there are already the vault volumes can consumed as CSI volumes.
Do the permission rewriting, the chmods and chones, happen for CSI volumes the same way they do for other volumes today?
They do, but it's a bit fragile actually, because we don't have a good mechanism of detecting whether we should do that ownership change or not for CSI volume. So it's like it's based on bunch of heuristics, like is it whether it is read write once, whether it has FS type. We want to move that check into CSI driver object, or that's our thinking, that so the driver can opt in for doing this recursive change, permission change.
Does the CSI driver have the pod spec so that it could make a similar calculation as is being discussed here? I would like to decouple the CSI aspect from the kubelet manage aspect. If we end up in a similar place where there's a really easy way for a CSI driver to say, is there a consistent UID that I could set permissions to? If so, do this. Otherwise, do the recursive chmod or whatever. I think it'd be good to get to a similar place for CSI, but maybe doing that as a second step once we pin it down for the built-in types.
one problem with doing it for a broader set of volumes is that we have to be, this is a behavior change. It seems like it's probably safe, but
by saying that, you have guaranteed that it is not safe now. Congratulations.
well, we would be changing ownership, and
yeah,
it looks good to me for so far. The other one last thing was it makes changes into, I was looking into the implementation, it makes changes into the entire volume plugin. It touches the plugins that it shouldn't be touching, but I think there's no easy way to avoid that maybe. But that can be discussed in the implementation PR.
In if we are okay with only doing this for projected volume types, an alternative would be to use the file projection writer. It has like a projected file struct has a field for permissions. We could add a field for owner. And that would at least, and then I guess that would all be set up during the volume write rather than using the volume level set ownership functionality.
So that would let us do this for a secret that was mounted as a projected volume, but not a secret that was just mounted as a secret volume. Is that right?
I don't think so. I think they both use file projections.
Do they?
I thought so.
You're talking about the atomic writer thingy?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Worth exploring, but we can. So I think the takeaway on that last point was we should try to scope this change to like the volumes that we actually intend to modify.
Yeah. If I agree with Mike, if we're broadening this to secrets in config map, then it needs a lot more careful review and test coverage, because those have tons and tons of users, and the projected service account tokens, any current users that are successful are already operating with just single user permissions. So from a storage perspective, are there cases that you're aware of where containers start with one UID and then like set UID inside the container in ways that would confuse the heuristic that's proposed?
Somebody you want to mute. Hemant. എല്ലാവർക്കും ഡിസ്റ്റർബൻസ് ആയി വന്നുകൊണ്ട്
We can always prove it out here and see if it's worth breaking out into its own KEP at some point in the future, if it works well.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with starting with the projected tokens, and then because those already behave differently than secrets and config maps and downward API, I would like those other aspects to become consistent. But because projected service account tokens already differ, and this is solving, unblocking something that is necessary to adopt those, I would also be okay with doing that first, and then with an eye towards making the other three consistent, and then even longer term, making the CSI bits consistent.
Awesome. That sounds good to me as well.
Saad, what are your thoughts about that?
That seems like a reasonable plan to me. I know volume permissions in general for volumes, persistent volumes, have been a mess. So I'm glad that there's some movement, at least on the ephemeral volume side, to get something a little bit more sane.
Well, it also might provide insight into how we handle object permissions then as well. If we're gonna offer something else certificate based, that would seem to make more sense. So we should keep that in mind with that KEP.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
So is there anything that you're waiting on or blocked on in the next, I guess, rest of this month, or is this going to be a Q2 project?
Yeah, so this is for the 119. So we have plenty of time. We just wanted to get some low latency discussion on it.
Okay, and you're going to be targeting an alpha for 119?
The change is to a beta feature.
Okay.
What do you think?
So if it's targeting just projected tokens, then that is a beta feature, and we would be broadening permissions under certain conditions. So treating that as a progression of an existing beta feature makes sense. If it is targeting changing config maps and secret, then that aspect I would expect to be much more cautious and go through kind of a alpha, like disable by default, let it get out there to get testing. So I think that's another reason to sort of separate those two aspects.
Sounds good.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. And so do you want to set a target for 119 or TBD?
Yes, hopefully 119.
119, just the projected tokens, or also?
Just tokens in 119.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
We'll see how it goes.
Okay, and then would you mind jumping in our meeting every now and then just to give us a status update? We'll track this from our side as well.
Awesome, will do.
Cool.
Who on the storage side would be good to tag for the implementation reviews?
Let's determine that at the next meeting. We have a planning meeting for 119 next in the next cycle, and we're going to figure out who's going to be working on what.
Okay.
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. Next item is our planning spreadsheet. Let me start sharing again. So the goal today is just to get a final end of quarter status update on the items that we've been working on. So raw block GA end of quarter, it's complete. Nice work, Jan. CSI cloning is also complete. Nice work, Jan.
And John.
And John. Thank you, John. CSI migration next steps. Anyone here to give a status update on that? So my understanding is that there were some bug fixes done in the core code, and the next step is for cloud providers to go off and implement their adapters. I don't know what the status of those adapters is at the moment. I'm going to mark this as started, and we can get more of a status update offline. Next item is CSI online offline resizing, fixing issues. Hamad, what's the final status on this?
It's in progress. We have a PR open for Kubernetes that was dropped from Milestone. Didn't get enough reviews, but we are planning to. There's another PR for external resizers that we are trying to get this that bump CSI version, adds new fields that we are planning to ship for this release. So it'll be like today or tomorrow. I will pushing that update. And there's a project dashboard I have created, and I'm tracking all things that needs to happen before before the resizing and whole goes GA. And I am scheduling calls and taking feedback and see what's missing and everything. So working towards that goal basically.
Okay. So sounds like work got started, and we're going to continue to do it in the next quarter.
Yeah, I'll have a call scheduled next Thursday. I think 1 to 2. I'll send the invites today sometime.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, next item is supporting containerized CSI node plugin for Windows. As far as I know, this is complete. KK, you want to give an update on this?
So the changes are complete. We found a last minute difference in the build process, which Michelle pointed out. So we are working to make it like other CSI projects. And once it goes through, we'll release the alpha version. We did an RC release, but that's not really the final kind of thing. Azure file and Azure disk was already merged. Azure file just got merged. Changes just got merged yesterday. So we are through there as well. So.
Nice. So it looks like it's on track to be completed by the end of the month.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to preemptively mark this as complete. And thank you for all your hard work on this. This is a huge highlight for the SIG this quarter.
Thanks from everyone. Thanks for everyone's efforts.
All right, next item is snapshots. We just wanted to fix a bunch of issues. It went to beta last quarter. Shing, you want to give an update here? Did we finish what we set out to for the beta or post beta work?
We are still working on bug fixes. It's still not complete yet. But Shangqian has started to work on metrics for the snapshot controller. Shangqian, you want to give an update on that?
Well, it's in progress. So I guess what we want to do is having this thing GA'd in 120. Where Xin and I are planning this.
Okay, that sounds good to me. So we'll do another quarter of bug fixes. We'll mark this as started. And goal here is to deliver a high quality GA. Thank you both for your work on that. Next item is non-recursive volume ownership, FS group. As far as I understand, this was complete, Hamad?
Yeah, this was done. Sorry.
Awesome. This is what Jordan was mentioning when he said, the generic persistent volume permission changing code is super slow, and there was code added this quarter that would allow you to make it faster potentially by being a little bit smarter about how it changes permissions. It's an opt-in thing. Next is SE Linux recursive file permission handling. We broke that out as a separate item. Any updates on that, Jan?
Not in 118, but I have kept open.
Okay. All right, and redesigning the file permissions for generic persistent volumes, we ended up dropping from the quarter. We'll punt that to next quarter. And I believe file permission handling for Windows has also been punted to next quarter. Is that correct, KK?
Yes, so we are discussing the Windows side of this with some of the folks, we're trying to get in touch with folks who can give us a little more idea about the permissions from Windows side.
Cool, thanks, KK. So we're going to mark that as not started and move it to the 119 sheet. Next item is CSI entry read-only handling. I did not see any updates on this either. Chris is probably not on the line. So we'll go ahead and move this to next quarter. The CSI driver object, as I understand, did hit GA. Is that correct?
Yes, it was merged.
Awesome. Next item is improving CSI metrics. We completed that work early. Issues related to assuming volumes are mount points. This did not have an owner. Looks like last status was Andy has a PR out, but has backward compatibility concerns, so we're going to target 119. So let's just copy that over and say started. Next up is a design for storage pools. Any updates on this from anyone?
I asked Patrick, is Patrick not online today? He said he is looking at the ephemeral volume part. He wanted to do a redesign of that. So I think he sent out some question on the SIG Storage mailing list, but I'm not familiar with the history of that. I think maybe Saad, you probably know the existing design of the inline volumes. So I think he was asking something about that. And then he said after that, after we figure out that one, he wanted to come back to the storage pool design. He wanted to be able to do the scheduling for both regular persistent volumes and those inline volumes. So it's like requires a redesign of that inline volume feature, which is already beta. So
got it. Okay, I think that might be a big project for next quarter. We should probably try to get clarity on that in the next couple of weeks. I know ephemeral volumes some folks had concerns about ephemeral volumes being a Kubernetes only feature rather than something that CSI supports natively. I wonder if Patrick's concerns align with that. If so, we need to decide what we want to do next for ephemeral volumes for CSI, whether we want to redesign it, redo it, or take what we have and move it to GA. and then apparently that influences this. So we'll need to figure that out in the next couple of weeks. Thanks. Thank you, Shing. Next item is volume group API.
Still have not got a chance to, I need to schedule a review meeting for that. So the CAP is there, have not got much attention.
Okay. Sounds good. Next item is the CSI drivers, NFS and iSCSI. Let's start with NFS. Looks like there was some progress on this. Does anyone have a status update? I believe Michelle is out this morning. So my understanding is that this was started. I don't think that the work here is complete yet. I believe we're going to have to move this into next quarter. Fiber channel, I don't believe was started at all. And same thing with Flex. So we'll end up moving those. And again, if we don't get kind of folks to own these CSI drivers, the plan is just to deprecate them, since we don't want dead codes just sitting around. And the plan is for Fiber Channel and Flex, we're going to go ahead and deprecate those. Next item is deprecation of the Kubernetes Incubator external storage repo. This was a repo where we just threw in a bunch of kind of side projects early on in the SIG. And since then, Kubernetes has kind of evolved to having a separate repo for every single project. And moving towards that, we want to deprecate pretty much everything under Kubernetes Incubator and get rid of that organization altogether, which means taking the projects in external storage and moving them out if they are still relevant. And so, as I understand, there were a couple of NFS provisioners under external storage. And that was, Kiran is helping with that. There hasn't been anything else identified in those repos that needs to be moved. If you think that is not correct, please reach out and let us know. Otherwise, this will end up getting deprecated.
Saad, we do have cluster block provisioner available in that repo. I can talk to you offline.
Okay, cluster block provisioner?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, actually sync up with Kiran and see the model that he's following for moving the NFS provisioners. Then we could do the same thing for the Gluster one.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, so I'm gonna mark that as started. Next item is volume namespace transfer. This was a design. I know there was a KEP out. Is Mike on the line by any chance?
Yeah, I made minor revisions to the KEP, but I still have to schedule a design review meeting.
Okay. Cool, thank you. We're gonna mark that as started. Next item is CSI Volume Health. Sheng, you want to talk about the progress here?
Yeah, so Nick has started development of the controller agent, but I think right now he is waiting for the CSS spec changes. The CSI spec that we had a couple review meetings, and we reached some consensus, so I updated the PR. So hoping to get that merged. So Saad, can you review that?
Yes, I will take a note to do that. Okay, so it sounds like status is this has started. We're going to move it to 119 to complete, and I will take a look at that CSI PR offline.
Okay, thanks.
All right, next item is generic populator data source.
Yeah, so the alpha of this is done. We're going to work towards beta in the next release. I had a question about the KEP. Do I need to change the status of the KEP to implemented now or only after this becomes GA?
That's a good question. I think it is now.
Okay, because it's in with the alpha feature gate.
Yeah. Double check that by looking at what other KEPs do. I'm not entirely certain there.
Okay.
Okay, so
but normally you would need to have some implementation even with the alpha, right?
Yeah, there's docs for the feature gate.
Yeah. I'm just saying that I was just a little confused when you're saying why we have to wait for it to become beta or even GA to do the implementation. I didn't understand that part.
Just I don't know what the so KEPs have like a state or proposed.
Oh, okay.
Implemented, and I don't know when you mark it implemented, if it's only after it's GA or as soon as it reaches alpha.
Yeah, I think so. I think I remember Yang just recently updated a bunch of KEPs after they go GA.
Well, okay, but if it's only after it goes GA, then there's nothing to do because this is just alpha now.
It's probably what's the current status? The provisional or implementable?
I better go look what the current status is. SIG storage. Right now, it is implementable. That's the status.
That looks like provisional. Probably that one. The provisional, should that be changed to implementable for you to start implementation?
You're looking at the wrong PR. If you look at what's in tree, it's implementable. They asked me to change it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I don't know when it's time to change it to implemented. Just a process thing.
Yeah, we can discuss it offline. I think it might be fine with what it is today. Okay, next item is object storage API. There's been a lot of design review meetings on this, so we're making good progress. Jeff, John, do you want to give a status update?
Yeah, hi Saad, this is John. I sent out the review from the last recording to the mailing list, and we're working right now to retool the bucket content API, so it's more of a snapshot of the bucket class. And yeah, you have further changes that came out of that meeting. So the PR should be merged by Friday.
Cool.
Or no, rather, sorry, my PR into our bucket proposal should be merged in by Friday. So our changes will go on.
Right, so this is an ongoing design discussion. Jeff and John are leading it. There's good progress being made here. If you're interested in participating in what the object storage API for Kubernetes looks like, what the CSI equivalent for object storage is going to look like, these are the meetings that you want to participate in. Reach out to John or Jeff and they can get you plugged into the right place.
Yeah, please do. We'd be happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Saad.
All right, next item is these three items are co-owned by SIG apps. They're being the work resides on the SIG app side, but we are interested in it from the SIG storage side, so we track it in our spreadsheet, which becomes a little bit difficult to do sometimes. So for the first item here, we had volume expansion for stateful sets. Looks like the status here was SIG apps is interested. KK will work on the KEP in 119. KK just wanted to confirm if that's still accurate.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll.
Hey, KK, have you synced up with Ken Covens from SIG apps?
So we went to SIG apps, and I don't remember the name of the person.
He's one of the co-chair. I heard him. I was in the last meeting. I heard him saying nobody's working on this. He's interested in working on it. So I remember you are also working on this. So maybe you want to check and see. I don't know what.
Oh, okay, okay. So I had gone to SIGAPS and they were interested in reviewing the KEP. So I was thinking I'll reinitiate the KEP so that they can review, but we can.
Okay, you probably want to ping him and see if he is also starting to update the CAP itself.
Sure. We'll do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next item is address issues where PVCs created by stateful sets are not auto-removed. There was a KEP in progress. Dave, are you on the line by any chance for a status update?
I think he said he has a conflict at this meeting time, so he always have a problem attending. I'm not sure, I haven't seen a KEP, but yeah, last time I checked, he said he's still interested in working on this.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to move that to 119. And next item is execution hook for application snapshot.
Yeah, so Shangqian and I discussed about this one. We started to do some prototyping. I think we need to maybe talk to Tim and just get some feedback from him, because this new design require changes in the container itself, which means SIG node is also involved, right? It's going to be a very it's a new entry API object, and then adding there, it's very difficult. So I think we need to discuss more, and then talk to the API reviewers, and maybe need to talk to SIG node as well.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a massive project because there are so many different areas of the code that it actually touches, and it's going to have implications. So thank you for following up on that, and we'll go ahead and move it to the 119 release. All right, thank you for giving the end of quarter status update. So next meeting, Xing is going to run that, and what we're going to do is just create a new tab for 119 and move over the items that are currently in started or not started phase to continue those. And for the items that we've completed, if they are still alpha or beta, we'll figure out what the next steps for those are. And if there's any items that you think the SIG should be working on, please attend the next meeting. That's the meeting to figure out what we're going to be doing for the 119 release. And you can suggest items, you can volunteer to code them, you can volunteer to review them. If you've been sitting on the sidelines wondering how you participate, the next meeting is the most important meeting to attend. All right, now let's go back to the agenda. We have one PR that needs attention from Mike. Mike, I'll stop sharing my screen and you can have the stage.
So that was from last week. I mentioned it. I was going to set up a meeting for it, or we can talk about it now if you want, but I wasn't prepared to.
Totally up to you. If you want to set up another meeting, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, we have 10 minutes left in this meeting. I'm guessing it's a large enough design that 10 minutes is probably not going to be enough.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so let's just set up a follow-up meeting and can discuss it there.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so is there any other PR that needs attention, designs that need attention, anything else anybody wants to talk about before we disband for the day? All right, thank you very much for your time. And again, the next meeting in 2 weeks is an important one to attend. We're going to do planning, so please attend that. And thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.